let's have fun. Let's just enjoy ourselves. All right, and we should be live, I think. That should be
All right.
it. I think, yeah. All right, so today we have Colin.
Hello.
And if anybody in the comments wants to say hello, these are working unlike last time. And yeah, all right. So just sound checking everything and we can start. So yeah, hello, Colin.
Hello. Very nice to be here.
I was really hyped about this day, and you were kind of one of the most devoted followers here. Almost the guy from comments anyways, but when I saw this build...
It's good content.
Sorry?
It's good content, so I enjoy engaging.
Okay. So yeah, and then for those who don't know, we just somehow connected and I saw his build and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we have to do. We have to chat about it. So those who don't know, Colin, we're gonna get to what he is, but first just let's focus on the part what he's working on. So he has a project which we're gonna dive into deeper. And we have that project open here. So it's a tiny teaser after we learn a little bit more about Colin. And we're gonna learn about this project and we're gonna see how it's built. And that's that for now, but let's start first with Colin. So you're a marketer.
Yes, yeah, I'm a marketer by trade. I studied it in college. After like a brief stint as a film major. I wanted to be a movie director back in the day, but marketing pays the bills a little bit better than filmmaking does. So I moved into marketing, actually started in SEO as my first job out of college back in like 2008. And from there, I've done social marketing, I've done a lot of agency work, digital strategy, paid media, and I've always kind of tinkered around with like website building and building digital things because it's been interesting to me.
So, and then you say SEO as a first job in 2008.
Yes.
Yes. How did that happen? Like, why SEO? Why not like any other, let's say, branch of marketing?
Because I was interested in digital marketing, and I wanted to go agency. It was 2008 when I graduated, so it was just into the financial crash here in the U.S. and I guess globally too, but most in the U.S. So like,
oh yeah, it came here. I remember.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. So it was really hard to find a job out of college, and I was fortunate to get an opportunity as an intern at a pretty small web development and SEO agency in Dallas, Texas. And they started training me pretty much from day one on SEO and sort of how it all worked. And I just thought it was really, really interesting. I had fun executing on campaigns for our clients and experimenting with my own work. Was doing a lot of research and reading into how it all works and everything, and just kind of went from there.
And back then, was there enough like information online about
SEO?
Oh yeah,
yeah. There was a ton. It was a pretty robust industry to be a part of at the time. Like there were a ton of conferences and training events and publications. To get into. It was kind of a wild world to be in for a little bit.
Okay. And then next thing we had like on the list to kind of find out more about you, like, so what kind of projects was that experience from the beginning and then going forward, like, because it's a long road of marketing and it's quite early days of SEO, honestly, like just
right
back then I imagine stuff was way much easier than it is now.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think that, it was probably a little bit easier in terms of like what you could get away with, but I think the core principles kind of still apply because like I did not keep practicing SEO my entire career. Like I've done it off and on depending on what my clients' needs were at the time. But for the most part, a lot of the things that I learned in my first job are still applicable to what I'm doing now, right? In terms of just creating good content, focusing on the user experience, getting backlinks. Like that's the kind of stuff that still kind of matters. From like a project standpoint, a lot of it was your kind of local businesses, kind of small shops, some like Fortune 500 companies that we did like small projects for. But a lot of it was sort of, we would build a site for a client, and then I would make sure it was search optimized, do their title tags, their content, all that fun stuff, a little bit of the sort of site architecture. And then we do sort of ongoing search marketing campaigns for that client after we launch the website, kind of a standard practice, I think.
Okay, and then the natural question is, well, we're kind of Webflow community part, at least part of it, or at least very adjacent, Webflow adjacent or stuff like that.
Yep.
So how did you find Webflow? Like, how did that part work? Like, how did the whole, how?
Yeah. It's so it's interesting. There's so I mentioned I've built like a lot of sites kind of along the way through my career. My first job was building a lot of like Drupal websites. I don't know if you're familiar with that platform. It was super popular a while ago, not as much anymore. I've done a lot of WordPress, done a lot of like custom stuff with like my development teams at various agencies. So I have like a lot of experience building sites. Did the On Deck no code program last year. I don't know if you're familiar.
Not really.
It was like On Deck is like almost like a training program or like a course program for the tech industry. And they had a course about no code tools. So I took that and was exposed to Webflow there primarily. I heard about it, come across it prior to that. So it's always sort of been on my radar, but I didn't like actually log in and start messing around with it till then. I had some experience between when I was like first exposed to Webflow and doing this project using and building in Bubble, which was an interesting experience.
Did you manage to kind of get some sort of project through the door with Bubble, or it was more of a learning kind of thing?
It was learning, and then the last startup that I worked for was super early stage, and their MVP was built on Bubble. So I did a lot of work in there with them, just trying to add on various marketing components and tools that I could use. And since we were a team of 2 or 3 at the time, you sort of had to do a little bit of everything. So I would jump in there a lot.
Okay, so I actually had these kind of marked up from what we chatted before.
Yep.
That you worked with those.
Exactly. Yeah. I like to play around with stuff and try different tools and sort of see what clicks and what doesn't.
Okay, so I'm happy to see that Webflow clicked, but honestly, those tools have their own, big wins and losses and pluses and minuses, pros and cons. So I get that part. All right, so let's touch the topic of today, which is programmatic SEO. So how did you get into the world of that, and how did that whole experience of understanding how it works? Because the way I see it, it's quite the same idea, but different way of thinking about it. So how did you found programmatic SEO? What were the first steps? Like, what's the story there?
Yeah. So again, I've kind of known about the tactic for a while. Even some of the stuff we were doing back in like 2008 is sort of programmatic-esque. Like we would build like wiki pages a lot in our Drupal sites to sort of like mass produce larger volumes of content than you probably could on your own. But I never really had the technical chops and to really be able to execute on some of that stuff on my own. But then I started getting into the no-code world and exploring all the tools that are out there. And I realized that I could probably do more than I thought I could. And then I started getting exposed to like niche site Twitter and all the programmatic SEO people there, publishing like how-tos and guides, and it's like started researching it more and like, oh yeah, I could probably do this with something. And Webflow seemed like the sort of perfect tool to help facilitate that. So it just went down the road.
You mentioned like niche and programmatic SEO Twitter, those are
Yeah.
quite similar Twitter
Yeah.
groups, but also very
Yeah.
distant from each other.
Mhm.
And then also, so like you also caught it like some sort of podcast rush of listening to stuff like that, because I know I did.
Yeah. I don't know. For a while, I was really almost purposefully not engaging with marketing podcasts because it was my job, my day-to-day job. I needed a break from that stuff.
But like,
So
as in for the SEO side of, and especially niche sites have like
yeah,
some good entry level, because you have to understand how that industry works, and
yeah,
it's not a typical business, but when you
Right.
get how that works, you start to
Right.
realize, okay, so there's like 3 ways to monetize it or something, and
Yep.
then you start to get, okay, and this is how you actually build a niche website, right? So
Yep.
like, have you ever got subjected to something like that? I assume you have been, as in the Twitter, but like, have you had
Yeah.
any other sources like where this information came from, or?
YouTube videos, Twitter for sure. There are some podcasts that I listen to now, like I don't know, niche site builders or something, authority hackers, stuff like that. And but a lot of it, honestly, is like going back to the early days of my career again. Like I had a lot of fun building what were essentially niche websites at the time around like indie music and like happy hours and nightlife. So I sort of like understood conceptually how to make a website like that. And I want to try to look for a way where I can actually monetize it myself and turn that into more of a business versus a hobby project, right? Because I'm not like a product guy. I'm a marketer. I'm a content guy. So like, how do I turn that into a business?
Okay, and honestly, Emmanuel is asking a question, and I don't know if you know
Oh
Emmanuel,
yeah,
but he's
yeah,
from
oh yeah,
Greece.
legend, the legend. I've definitely been inspired by some of his videos. So
And Emmanuel is bombarding us with questions, and the first one was like, what's the process and how do you decide when to use it?
yeah,
And I think, wait, let me double check that. I think we can touch that. We might skip
Okay.
it if we find it later, but so what's your kind of 2 cents on
yeah.
that?
To me, it sort of comes down to right now I'm a team of one mostly, and I'm kind of just bootstrapping this thing, right? So I'm always looking for ways to gain more leverage with my work, and sort of do the work of a full team, but for one person, right? And to me, programmatic SEO helps with that because I don't have to go in necessarily and hand write like 100 blog posts, right? I mean, I'm doing that too, but it helps me greatly expand the scope of my site in a pretty efficient way. And what helps with at least my niche in pinball is that there's a lot of data out there already that I can leverage. There's some stuff that people are doing, but they aren't like, it's not necessarily search optimized or done with a marketer's eye or content eye. So really, it's just an opportunity to see if I can improve on any of that too.
Yeah, here I will kind of add my own 2 cents. The way at least I see this is,
Yeah.
it's I think you had mentioned it somewhere where we kind of were preparing what we're gonna chat about, right? So
Yep.
I think the same here. Like programmatic SEO is a good base, and you don't need to have quite a lot of people on your team, but it's still not gonna work if you don't start touching each page or URL and making it more
Yep.
unique. So when you, at least with Webflow, the way I found, like if you build big structures, you can set a lot of base by just
Yep.
having a good data set. But then
Yep.
you also have to have flexibility as in empty fields for unique content that you will
Yep.
add later as it kind of progresses. And
And
especially if the
that's
design
like,
is strict, right? If the design is made not by you, let's say,
Yep.
then it becomes hard. So it's just kind of, that's I think the hard part, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly, that's a great way to phrase it, because the programmatic stuff is more the structure of the site, and then I need to go in and write real content, value-added content to sort of bring the structure to life, to like, add the walls, add the furnishings of the house, like that kind of stuff. Just pure programmatic, I think, doesn't work that well on its own.
I had
At
experiences
least in my experience.
Yeah, I had experiences when you can actually, but then you prepare that data before, spin
Yeah.
it real well. So you
Yeah.
prepare not one type of set per set, like not one type of structure, but a few, and then you mix and match them.
Yep.
That's like a way. But then on top, still at the end of the day, as soon as it shows up in top 100, you have to open it up, have
Yeah.
to start looking at it as a unique
Yeah.
one page.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, So I think we're now at this point where you had a good example, and I just wanted to use it. We could have skipped this question, but like, how would you explain programmatic SEO for somebody who's not Emmanuel, who's not me, who's not you, who never heard about it? Like, what's the shortest?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I sort of alluded to before, it's really a way to use structured data to publish content in a much larger scope and scale than you could probably accomplish through more traditional means.
Which meant beginners now just got even more scared.
Yeah,
Because it
maybe no, it's like it's beginner friendly. I mean, it just takes a lot of work.
All right, so we have a site, which is, for those who don't know, is this site over here. It's a pinball news and arcade machine kind of website with the main focus on. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong at any given moment. Okay, just stop me and say, hey. So the way I understand, it's a pinball and arcade games website. And I love that part which says like physical gamers, not digital ones, but physical gamers, which with if correct me if I'm wrong, I think with the biggest current goal to be the best pinball site, right? And then
that's kind of the niche that I know the best from personal experience. I'd love to expand into other categories in the arcade physical gaming space. I just don't have as much personal experience with those areas. So eventually I'd like to bring on more writers and contributors that do actually have that experience. But right now it's primarily pinball.
Okay. So all right. So let's jump to back to this place, and let's continue with the questions. And then if anything you want to show on the build, just let us know, and I'm gonna guide the viewers through whatever it is. And then I think I'm gonna just do my kind of quick intro of how I think this build can be represented. So you have all the states. You have different pinball businesses, right?
Yeah.
Different clubs. Yeah. And then you have a bunch of other handful data, which is like pinball locations, right?
Yeah.
So these are mostly bars we have, and you have like 2,500 pinball locations in site.
Yeah.
And then you have even players in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then a few other things that when put together and presented in this coherent programmatic fashion, kind of builds enough base for Google to show you on certain
Yeah.
in certain searches, especially when those searches are surrounding topics of where to play pinball in X area.
Yeah. Right. And that's where I use the blog as sort of the like connective tissue for everything, where I'll try to write a lot of content sort of around the stuff that's in the CMS collections. So like that is probably not a good example, but like some of like the like
what is a good example?
The like 6 essential pinball bars and arcades in Nashville.
Okay. All right. So this is basically a rewrite of one of your collection pages would be in a way, right?
Yep. That's exactly it. But focusing in on a specific city and some of the locations in that.
So
city.
You don't have cities inside your build currently.
No. It's mostly grouped around states.
Okay.
I could filter into city.
And then you still do it by hand? You don't do any programmatic stuff to prepare them out of your data set? Like
so the data set, I will filter that by hand on Airtable, mostly where my data lives. And then I'll go in and this is where that like value added content comes into play, where I'll go in and do actual research on each of these locations to generate this sort of descriptive paragraph about, what you can find there, why you should play there, what kind of games they have. So that's where that, the programmatic piece kind of falls down. Like I can't really go into that level of detail on programmatic alone.
Okay, and then I have a question. So in most this type of programmatic builds, you would go for each city, right? And that would be the goal. So you would not only have business. Sorry, my bad. Where was it? States, right? And but you will also have cities, and you would add only the most important ones. And those you would write kind of uniquely, but you haven't decided. But you didn't decide to make a unique CMS collection for that. You decided to go with a blog post variant for it. So you think that's because each, SERP will require a little bit different angle, or you think there's always going to be this listicle approach? So hence why?
Yeah, there could, and I'm kind of just experimenting with different stuff. Like, to be honest, I haven't thought about creating a new CMS collection for cities, but yeah, I could. And some of it is sort of like, I just want to try hands-on building a lot of this stuff, even in sometimes less than efficient ways, so that I can better understand the process and how to improve it later. And also, I don't necessarily know that I want to go all in on city information, because I don't know that it performs well yet for this niche,
okay.
right? So some of it I'm testing.
Small, right?
Yeah. But it is very geographic focused, so it sort of makes sense that people would be searching for that, and I am seeing some of that. But it's all an experiment.
Okay, so we can come back then to the experiment part, because this kind of follows up. So pinball.
Yes.
Not your typical niche affiliate programmatic SEO type of build.
There are no affiliates.
That's bad for. I mean, you have display ads, which, by the way, you still don't have on your website.
No, purposely not doing that right now, but I might eventually, once I get my traffic up to like what's that, the ad network, Mediavine levels. But I also like, the intent is to build something larger than just a niche like programmatic display ad site. Like, I actually want to build on products and services that contribute back to the community in some way. So some of this stuff it's a little bit of a means to an end, but we'll see.
Okay, and so one of the experiences I had, if you wanna slap ads on a site like that, especially in Webflow, as my experience with Ezoic was very horrible with Webflow.
Yeah.
It just breaks your site.
Yeah.
But with AdSense, actually quite cool. And yes, you're not making enough money to make it worth, but what you're doing is Google knows your website even better. That's one.
Yeah.
And two, it kind of we can't say that it prioritizes it against other websites.
Yeah.
But we can also say that because they will
Yeah.
make money if they visit your site. So
Right.
So that part, like I had experience with not waiting for that media line or what's the other Adthrive, right? To go, let's wait for that and then punch it in. But like adding and gently or not gently AdSense in beginning, because Ezoic cannot recommend. Like I tried on a Webflow site Ezoic, and eventually, I love the feeling for Webflow in general, and I think we all do, that it's not like WordPress, it's not crashing, it's not the servers down, it's not a lot of other problems. And then Ezoic turned my Webflow sites into that, which is a hard thing. So that's just a tip from my side, from my experience. It may be worth a while, especially when you think you're confident reaching that part. So
I briefly turned on AdSense a couple weeks ago just to see what it would do. And pretty quickly, it kind of, I don't know if it doesn't matter that much at this scale, but like it tanked my site speed scores, and I just I don't want any of that stuff on there right now while I'm growing.
So Emmanuel again is asking a question, and I think I had how research, then we have data, which is so we had this question, so I think it's the same question as he's asking. So how long have you been working on a site, and because he sees, of course, numbers and things, wow, that's crazy. It's like where was it, 2,500 locations and so many CMS collections, and we can't show a lot, but if you guys in comments want to ask about specific part of the back end, ask now or later. It just disappears, and you're gonna try to dig it through the sitemap, and the sitemap is huge.
So how long have I been working on the site? So I launched version 1 on WordPress on a different domain in like June of last year, 2022. And then pretty quickly moved to kind of learning Webflow after that and putting version 2 on Webflow. I think I launched that in October or so, and then I did another kind of almost complete refresh in January of this year. And I'm really just working on it daily, adding content and tweaking stuff and experimenting with things.
All right, so not as long, but also because then we can touch the next question. Emmanuel, let us know if that answered your question. So the question would be, where did you get the data, man?
Yeah, it's so a lot of places. Like I mentioned earlier, the pinball niche and community is really interesting because there are a lot of kind of technical data nerds in the community that are building stuff with freely open APIs that people can use and pull data from for their own purposes. So like a lot of the location data comes from this service called Pinball Map. They're awesome. It's a crowdsourced, exactly what it sounds like, map of like pinball machines that the community maintains. They have an API for it that I was able to pull data from. I wanted to, so they have a lot more locations than I do, which is very intentional. I'm not really as interested in like the corner bar in your neighborhood that has like a single machine there. I want more of the like established places with multiple machines that are really serious about pinball and arcades. So I sort of took their data, filtered it a bunch, cleaned up a bunch of stuff, transformed it in a few different ways that were more interesting to me. And then
that's how you
put it
got
up
this
on the site.
collection?
Yep. Exactly.
And then you
Yep.
have the pinball locations collection with the most
Yeah.
generic information about it.
Yep.
Okay. And then pinball locations gets a page, which is this one, right? But you mostly
Yeah.
needed to create these kind of sets of per location.
Yeah, and then when so I'm slowly working against this, like adding actual real unique descriptions of each location so that there's a nice like paragraph of valuable copy there too. But as you can imagine, that takes a while.
Yeah. But it's I love Webflow for that part, you know. It's
Yeah.
like a text.
It's
and
like,
a CMS.
oh my God.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind what you can do with it. So it's awesome.
Especially when you come from, but I don't know Drupal that well. But
Yeah.
like I know WordPress good enough to know how horrible and how stuck you feel when you're building stuff like that on WordPress.
Yeah.
And here you can
Yeah.
just come up with it on the go, on the fly, and it's like, oh yeah, what if I do that? And it's done in a minute. When on WordPress back in the day, it would have been a developer maybe in 2 weeks will send you back a shittier version of what you envisioned.
Yeah, it's just like you can spot a WordPress website. I feel like from kind of a mile away. So I didn't want that look and feel for mine. So.
And how did the research phase? Okay, so you scrape data after probably the research phase or before, or how did the whole research like? Because okay, you are yourself, you know, a pinball player, geek,
Yes.
arcade guy.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah. So, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. And then the question is like, how did the research look? Because decision is quite clear, right? You picked a niche because you know it, and you picked a niche because there's also good. Not a lot of niches have APIs and database like
Yeah, I know. It helps.
It helps a lot.
Yeah. So I'm a marketer by trade, right? I've got an SEO background, so I've been looking for a while for ways to start my own business, my own company, my own thing. And so naturally, you know, you start doing keyword research for different topics that you're interested in. Start looking at some of the websites in the niche that I was already sort of engaging with and enjoying, and sort of seeing how they kind of worked, how people use them, and just sort of identifying what I thought were maybe some gaps in the market, or maybe just some opportunities to put a different spin on things. So yeah.
Okay, so you're basically, it's not that you're just coming up with all of this on the fly. It's more of a,
No.
you know competitors that are doing something similar. You just
Yep.
do it faster, better, and more improved.
Yeah, more like community centric. Like I really do want it to be useful, and not just sort of like a parasitic entity, right? So yeah. Yeah.
Honestly,
I guess
it
that's right.
shows in your pick on, hey, how about cities are blog posts, not cities are
Yeah.
city CMS, because that's like
Yeah.
that's like unexpected. I looked at your build like a few weeks ago, remember? And now is the second time I'm looking at it, and I didn't notice that part honestly, because it's so much in the beginning. Like first time you see
Yeah.
it, there's no like
Yeah. I'm not a designer either. Like one day I'll have someone come in and like actually clean it up, but like yeah.
But aren't all guys that can structure a beast like that and get the results that wait, what is it? I can now show it for a moment. Aren't everybody who can get results like that, you know, with a like wait, oh sorry, this was links. My bad. So that can go from 0 to 7,000 traffic. Aren't all guys like that? Not designers. They're like, I know how to structure stuff. I don't really care about a lot of other things.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's interesting because it's a lot of the stuff I'm doing. You know, I've been recommending to clients of mine for years and years and years. I'm just finally kind of executing on it for my own project instead of someone else's.
That's true. Yeah, same
Yeah.
here. But that's exactly like why one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to have this podcast and then acting on Twitter and being the annoying guy, for designers or developers or whatever. It's because I know what it takes to build something like that, and I know the results it's gonna yield. But at the same time, and I know the energy it requires and the manpower and the hours and the content and you say scraping data is not enough. You are lucky to have data, but still it's not enough. You have to also sift it and
you can't just take the data and spin it into your own site and expect it to work. At least for me, I don't think it's gonna work. You sort of have to add your own spin to it, augment it, change it around.
And
so
to make it also a good user experience, a fast website, whatever, that takes
Hopefully.
so many different people. No, but really, like, it takes so many different people. Somebody like you, me, or I don't know, Emmanuel, has to show up and actually think about stuff like that because it's hard, right? And then somebody else should be pushing us backwards and saying, whoa, why so many pages? And then somebody else has to be, whoa, why so much text on a page? Can we? And then that's, I think, how genius stuff, at least best projects in my life. That's why I'm now happy to say that I had some experience with some builds on Webflow where it becomes an interesting thing because you get to work with certain professionals and each one of them kind of pushes them backwards and forwards and asks them. And then you make these kind of sacrifices on your craft, right? But then they do as well. And in the end, you get this kind of project, which is extremely cool and moves so insanely fast because it's Webflow, right?
You can churn stuff out or just like try new ideas really fast, which is awesome.
So, mistakes part.
I mean, I'm still making mistakes like every day, probably.
That's good.
Probably like
that's good news.
Someone I'm really waiting for someone who maybe like you just knows Webflow way better than I do at this point. Be like, oh, you're doing X, Y, and Z wrong, and it's so obvious. But I'm kind of doing what I can as I learn. So some mistakes. What did I put down? Just like not really understanding what the full capabilities of Webflow were at the start, and sort of how to get the most value out of their features as I could, and just sort of like not really understanding how the systems worked at first.
So what kind of stuff, like the CMS as
like the CMS and like on the designer front, in the past I've known like just enough basic CSS to be dangerous, right? But like I'm not used to building these kinds of layouts in this way or sort of thinking about design
so basically
in that kind of
was
way.
the problem?
Yeah, I guess, or like how to structure all of the components and like all the stuff that like that FinSuite, right, is helping a lot with. Like I don't have a firm grasp just based on my background and that kind of stuff. So I kind of had to make a lot of trial and error mistakes there, and stuff that looked kind of wonky at first and that I had to kind of refine and clean up, and that I'm still doing that to this day.
Okay. Cool. That's everybody has their own blind spots, right? And you say I like that part. Like even knowing stuff, you still come into Webflow, and it's because of the power you get, it becomes harder questions that you ever solved because of that complete flexibility, right? And that's why I love your site from the get-go, is because I didn't see the design of it. I mean, not didn't see, but was not looking for it, but I immediately saw the structure is good, as in we can now chat for 5 hours about how to improve it, and we're gonna find a million ways, but the start is good, and it's that part kind of because my own personal endeavors in programmatic SEO and Webflow always ended by not actually doing it in the end because of the CMS item limit, and that 10K is not a lot until you start building programmatically and becomes like it's gone, and that's why I loved about your site. Like it's really hard to find a niche for Webflow, that
Yeah.
where you don't fall into that problem,
Right.
where it's enough. So, and
Yeah.
especially like if you will have some sort of a user generated content feature, then you're immediately out of the borders. Like you just can build something, but then at least user generated content has to come from a third-party tool. We're looking at you, Emmanuel, with the Viz server-side rendering. But and speaking of which, by the way, Emmanuel was also asking, how do you find opportunities for programmatic SEO? And we chatted about this before the stream, so I think we have a good answer for him. Go for it.
Yeah. So there's a lot, and this is one of the things I kind of struggled with too. One of the things that I learned from other people talking about, there's a lot of sort of open data sets, like open APIs out there. Like there's a GitHub repository of just like the master list of like open APIs, right? That you can access in like various topics. Kaggle is another good resource for that, where you can just sort of take the bones of that data and see if you can find a way to apply it to your niche, or maybe the data is the niche. And then in keyword research, it's just about finding patterns of keywords that people are like, places to play pinball in X city, right? That's a great programmatic
Best X
keyword
for
example.
Y.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so just like finding those patterns and then matching up some sort of data set with that pattern.
Yeah, my to add here, my best experience with guys that I worked with or just acquaintance with that got kind of lucky in certain niches, especially if you're a solo player, right? Because there's a difference when you have a team to build this, and then when you're a solo player, is usually location based something. So so location would be the changeable, the thing that changes, and then you would have X and Y. So three kind of variables. Something inside this location for something. If you find something like this that kind of follows this matrix, then then the question is, do you have to scrape data and you can build it from scraping it, which is already half the work, but then you will still need to develop the content. Or if you can have an API, then usually it's most likely going to be done already. But if not, then you find like a gold mine of, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. So Emmanuel says, nice, sounds pretty cool. That's cool to hear. So let's come back to our kind of tiny structure that we had prepared before this. So struggles. We kind of touched that, right? You said the mistakes, but did you have like any real struggles where you imagine things to be one way and then it's completely changed across the like when you finished it, or like any kind of unexpected behavior where you envisioned it in your mind and it came out maybe worse or even better, like at the end?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the biggest struggle is just getting the data structured and displayed in the way that I want. That and like trying to build more of a UI that people will use and sort of understand how to use well, and how to access the information that they need. Like that's a big struggle for sure. Pulling together all of the pieces in terms of like the stack that I'm using, and like when to use something like JetBoost versus FinSuite versus MemberStack, like all of integrating all of that has been a little bit of a struggle. Yeah, I think does that answer your question?
Any answer that
is
honest answers the question, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming from a few other answers we already had from you, it was always like, and still is, and probably will forever be a gradual improvement. It's not a goal that you envision and you're gonna leave one day. The goal is the opposite, right?
Yeah, it's very much the goal is learning and trying stuff out, and historically I've been more of like an overthinker, right? Where the plan and the strategy and everything has to be like perfect before I'll put it out in the world. But this was really an opportunity or um, a way for me to publish a bunch of stuff that's it's imperfect, it's a work in progress, but it's generally moving in the direction that I want to head in. Um, and then just gradually moving closer and closer to that goal over time.
Okay. And I assume, and based on the website, it's like a content question now, but the hardest part
Yeah.
for you is the images.
Okay, so that was a major unlock too. Banner Bear. I'm sure you're familiar. Have you heard
Yeah,
of it? Yeah.
programmatic images with.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
So I
That's,
do.
so you built. Wait. So now I'm just got really hyped real fast. So you want to tell me now? Let me guess, and then you can answer because I want to make the guess before it. Okay. So
Yeah.
all the locations you generated this image with banner beer.
Yes.
Okay, and have
Yeah.
you done any
Wait.
other fun stuff, or only this format for this image?
For Banner Bear, that might be the only one. That's the big one. I think I did some stuff in like the business directory in the lineup section, but not as advanced, and that section needs a lot of work. So don't highlight it here. Is what I'm saying.
No, that's-
But
For those who don't know, by the way, banner beer is basically imagine some sort of Canva tool,
yeah,
which
yeah,
allows
yeah.
you to turn spreadsheets into unique images with text.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. And then if you guys
Yeah.
interested, really find the banner beer. But yeah, so continue.
So the stuff that I'm generating the Banner Bear images from, it's the same information, the same database that is powering the content, right? It's just a much more limited view, which is really interesting. And then on some of the like blog post, listicle kind of stuff, it's a lot of Canva, where I just pull together a basic template where I know I'm swapping out like one or two things over 100 or 200 items and just sort of like batch doing it in large groups.
Okay. So, but do you think the next step would be having community members in certain cities or something to kind of help you with that part, especially like with the real human taken images and stuff like that, especially
Yeah.
for that kind of visiting a location
Yeah.
part, or even contacting locations and getting that data from them as the
Yeah.
site grows, like maybe sometime in the future? Like, what's the plan
Yeah.
with that stuff? Because
Yeah,
that's going to be
I
the
would-
hardest start, and it's always the hardest part of any programmatic build, right?
Yeah, yeah, I would love to. I don't know that one I don't have the funding to like hire people to do that kind of work at scale. But two, I mean that's where Pinball Map is great because they're already doing a lot of that crowdsourcing work, and I'm just pulling not all of it, just like bits and pieces that I need to make the site relevant and interesting. But yeah, no, I'd love to have more localized community representation reflected in the content.
Well, I hope as it grows, you're gonna get it, because it's
Yeah.
if you make it like helpful to people, it gradually becomes easier and easier
Yeah.
to get.
Yeah. And there's definitely a community user generated content piece that I want to add eventually. I'm sort of hesitant to tack that on until I'm confident that I have like the sort of moderation playbooks in place to make sure it stays a pretty positive place to hang out in.
Yeah, especially with all the recent Webflow. Wait, in the past few weeks became big enough so that there are now spam coming in, and that
Yeah.
just happened
Yeah.
literally
Yep.
a few weeks ago, right?
I'm getting with this. Mm-hmm.
So, so the next question I had, and I think we discussed it, was like, so what was the easiest part when doing a large build like that, because that would kind of run for the, Webflow's unique strengths or stuff like that.
Yeah, the front end, I think, and just sort of like visually building the site was the easiest because of tools like FinSuite out there and their client first structure like that helped a lot, and then getting into the Reloom stuff, that really helped a lot. So it made that process a lot easier than what I have experienced on other platforms. So where I feel like I could actually put something forward that had design aesthetics, I guess. I don't know the right way to phrase this, but at the core versus what you'll find on like a lot of like WordPress templates and bubble sites and whatnot, where it's more function over form. I wanted some form.
Yeah, I mean, that's also the thing. Coming from SEO and marketing world myself, that's also was the selling point for me, because it was, and also like in the past, after building a few Webflow sites, I had actual ideas, as I said, like that I really wanted to build on Webflow, tried, but then math kind of failed me because realizing it's impossible to build in Webflow. And now kind of Viz is trying to show that maybe this is going to be soon possible, especially if server-side rendering comes back, but, is launched. But I remember coming back to WordPress and turning it on and saying, okay, so this is too big of an idea. It's a good idea, but it's too big of an idea to build for Webflow. And then getting the necessary stack to launch it, and then realizing you have zero control. But not no control, you have less than no control.
Right. Yeah.
And staring at it and realizing that for SEO, I just need a rich text block here, above the footer, but after the content, but and how do I put it there? And it's impossible. Yeah. And then with Webflow, it would be just like drag and drop, done. Okay, cool. Next thing.
So great.
That changes your mind as a marketing and content clustering expert forever. I think in the hindsight, and that leads me to the question. So how do you manage that content? Because I assume you don't manage it on Webflow. And I assume I know why you don't manage it on Webflow.
I manage the content primarily in Airtable. And then it gets to Webflow through a tool called Whale Sync.
So it's a two-way sync or just one way?
I'm just doing one way. The two-way stuff can cause issues if I change it in one place or whatever. So I just wanted the flow going in one direction from Airtable to Webflow and make that simple. And then so I use Airtable honestly to help with that 10,000 item CMS limit. Like I probably have 30, 40, 50,000 records, right? That I have in my Airtable database.
So you're going to run out of Airtable limits soon.
I did that very early on. So it's actually split among, like each section of the site pretty much has its own Airtable base to help with that. But yeah, it helps me do a lot of more like advanced filtering. It helps me do like concatenate stuff to pull in like the SEO page title, for example.
My favorite formula.
It's awesome. And that helps me do like some of the programmatic stuff, add in images, tie collections together. So yeah, that's kind of underpowering.
You do a lot of data splicing and like that whole work of preparing it for pushing it through the front end. Not on a spreadsheet, but inside Airtable, or you do it first somewhere else and then
all Airtable. All goes in Airtable, and that's where I nix it. That's where I play with it, and sort of it's like that like iceberg, photo where it's like what you see on the content is like 20% of the actual work that was done, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So there's a lot of more fields than what we see here on the Airtable, and by that it allows you to get these fields right by just running a lot of other calculations and formulas and things like that, right? Okay,
exactly.
Cool. That kind of makes sense, but also unexpected, right? Because typical Webflow designer or developer, especially a solo like guy or girl will probably already think that this is a huge amount of data to have, like to have few collections that have at least a few thousand. It's already a lot, but we both know that to get there, it's not that easy. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, in terms of programmatic, right, the part where, as we just said, you have to play a lot with data, and actual building the design or something is quite quick, right? Compared to how much it takes. Would you say that, right? That it's way much. You spend way much longer in Airtable than in Webflow. Would that be a correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's definitely correct.
Okay.
Probably like 60-70% Airtable and then the rest Webflow.
So, guys, those who are thinking about having their own site that has thousands of visitors and grows like a hockey stick, remember, you're gonna spend like, as just Colin said, 70 to 80% in Airtable, and you're gonna be.
I guess that was a surprise, right? Of the whole build process. I didn't realize it'd be in Airtable that much, but it's fine.
So here I had like a question, which kind of those questions a little repeat, but it was like the hardest part about building a programmatic, as in like just programmatic site with Webflow.
Yeah.
You have any kind of thing any kind of tip for anybody who would be thinking about doing that, like what to prepare? Not necessarily Webflow, as we just said, prepare to spend 80% of your time outside of Webflow, but like the other tip you have.
I think you just want to think about. I think you want to think about how the data maps to your site structure. I think that's pretty important. How you want to organize it, and sort of how you might need to take the raw data and transform it to fit whatever you're trying to build. Right. You really do have to kind of think through that process.
So would you go for a similar build hypothetically, right? Because we know you want to go for this all in and eventually have a team, and that would be the awesome thing. But if let's say you would have ideas for other stuff, would you go for something that doesn't actually have a data set, but you kind of create it on your own by just making your own content formulas and things like that, which would result in a way smaller site.
Yeah.
Maybe in hundreds, not in thousands of pages.
Yeah.
But still would be answering those, search intents and would be answering stuff like that. Would you?
Yeah, maybe. I'm open to it. I feel like that it would be much harder to get scale quickly if you go with a smaller site, personally. So that's why I'm kind of going larger here, because I want that big footprint, right? But yeah, no, I would definitely do something like this again if I was interested in the niche, and there was some data out there that I could use to bring something kind of new to life. Yeah.
So basically, what I'm hearing here, as long as you know what you're talking about or creating content about or thinking about or building about, you don't you would say that you don't necessarily every time need a data set or an API for that, as long as that's there, right?
Yeah. I don't think you have to. That it's like I've very much been in my career like I want all the available tools in my toolbox to pull from, right? And then depending on the situation, when I'm trying to build, I might use a hammer versus a screwdriver, right? And so programmatic SEO and using this tactic, it's working for this niche, it works for other types of niches, but it's not 100% fit for everything, right? So you sort of have to adapt to what you're doing.
Okay. And we're kind of starting to run into the end here, so I still have like So, what was the biggest Webflow limitation? Like, was there a Webflow limitation for programmatic SEO? Because there is this kind of still a notion between certain professionals that like, oh, Webflow is bad for SEO, and we both know that the answer is not that, because code is code. Yeah. What we know is that Webflow is bad for SEO because most of the guys that are building Webflow sites, at least in recent years, were the same guys that want to win an awards, a website award for design, not to actually say, hey, I'm gonna make $1 million a month from affiliate revenue. Yeah. Which is, we both know it's doable and hard and takes a long time, but when you get there, you kind of stay there. Right. So what I'm kind of trying to push here is Webflow bad for SEO, and if it's not, then was there any SEO or programmatic SEO limitations that you encountered like throughout the whole process so far? Because you're an experienced guy with more than a decade of experience in marketing and SEO under your belt. Yeah. No, I've found from an SEO perspective what you can do with Webflow with like a little bit of customization and sort of just kind of legwork. Like, it's not like spoon-fed to you in the way that WordPress can be with some of the like plugins that they have in their ecosystem. Like, you have to do some work for it, but you can do so much with it. It's just like so powerful in terms of the possibilities. And yeah, it's no like indexing issues really, like technical issues, and the page speed stuff sometimes is a little problematic, but it's not a huge deal in the grand scheme. Okay, cool. That's what I wanted to hear. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's one of the reasons why this is called Webflow SEO, not just SEO. Yeah. Because this is something I noticed some long time ago, but then you have this path of, from one side, guys don't like Okay, so there's two subsets of people: those who did SEO since longer or whatever, or doing them on other platforms. And then those who only work with Webflow but know nothing about SEO, and kind of the goal is to gradually merge them together, as in calm down one side and also teach a little bit the other side, and not necessarily be the best or whatever in the industry, but more of a be like, hey guys, you should meet each other. You should start talking, because trust me, things you think you know, both of you don't know, and when you meet and start kind of chatting about it, I think that's that's the goal of this whole every week to show up and do. So any last kind of thoughts on what you would like to share with the people, as in like, this is... Yeah, I mean, I'm still very much learning as I go and trying to figure stuff out. So, I mean, if anyone watching this is also interested in pinball and arcade machines and wants to collaborate on anything, I'm open. So just feel free to reach out, or if you have questions on your own build, I'm happy to help and do what I can. So, guys who were watching this or are watching this in the future, these are the Twitter handles that you should kind of follow. Twitter's good, for sure. Twitter's good, yeah. Even though it's breaking bad. Yeah, well, yeah, I know. For how much longer, I don't know. But you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm all over the place. So that was Colin. It's awesome. I could continue chatting about this forever. Yeah, for sure. Especially going deep, but I think that whole idea is, if somebody wants to go deeper, they can get in touch, or we can get you reach out here again. We'll talk. I'll do a part 2. It'd be fun. Part 2 would be awesome. Yeah. Especially when you grow and you learn more. Yeah. So I'm working on a new collection of like pinball games, the Pinball Machines collection. This is the one. Yeah. So that's the new one that is coming into play. So this one that still has so this has nothing, and then that one has just start with still. Yeah. So the machines, I don't. If you go back to the collection page.
the pinball machine manufacturer template.
Yeah, this one.
That's sort of what I'm starting with.
Okay. And then you would show here different machines they make, or?
Yeah, I don't know why it's not loading in that view, but there is a view that should have
this
all of their machines. Yeah, yep, exactly.
I can't believe you get these data sets.
It's another open API that the community built that I can just tap into. So
this community is crazy, and I think
I know,
found like a gold
it's an awesome
mine.
community. Yeah,
Like a gold mine. There's not a lot of communities that say, "Hey, I gathered all possible machines, all possible manufacturers. Here you go."
Yeah.
But yeah, this looks awesome, and then you even start to have certain images of it. So.
Yeah, that's V2 of the images of the image work is actually getting stuff of the machine versus just the name.
Okay, and that's still gonna be available, like as in you're gonna get those images for most of them, or at least some of them, or this is
as many as I can. It takes longer than I want it to find the right image that I can use in this context. But yeah, that's the goal.
So what you're doing, Canva, then remove background and then slap it on this template, something like that?
Yep, exactly. Yep, you got it.
Man, we use the same tools. I love that part.
Nice, yeah.
So I think
yeah.
Today I think I tweeted like somebody was saying, "Hey, I can't believe that 2 years ago people were laughing at why using Canva instead of something like Illustrator." And I tweeted back the same, like, I remember the feeling, because when you're an SEO guy and you find Canva, you're like, oh my god,
it's like, holy crap. Like I have some experience with the Adobe platform too. Like I was using that a lot prior to diving into Canva, but Canva's great. You can do just so much with it because you don't need to go as deep as you can with
and also because you want to always speed up the process. You can sacrifice a little bit of quality up to, I don't know, 10, maybe even 20% of quality, as long as you speed up the process, significantly. So that part. And every tool I think like our, breed of marketers / SEOs is always are always looking for that faster. And, and you find, because your job is to move fast, as opposed to somebody like, I don't know, a designer who is, in general, wants to get it as right as possible. That's why the process is long, and there's a lot of very good exercises and a lot of good tests. But for us, it's the opposite. Like, done is better than perfect. How can it be done tomorrow? And if it can't, okay, the day after that. And if not, then in a week. And if not in a week, maybe it's a wrong choice in the first place. Because if I can't have it fast, then I know. So,
and what's great about search too is that you always have the opportunity to go back and improve on what you initially put out there. So it's not kind of all or nothing.
That part is, I think, what people get our profession the wrong the most is that sooner or later, first you learn that it's only links and content. Later you learn 2,000 other things, and then later in the end you still come back to the same thing. It's still, as you said, like, it's still links and content. But at least I now know a lot of rules which, based on the sacrifice of time, I might apply or might not, sometimes even intentionally, and based on a lot of factors. And I think that part comes with that we like at least some sort of version today is better than a better version later.
Exactly.
Because I can always later improve it. And that's what you think, because we know that this is a long game of speed and endurance, So speed as in created ASAP.
Yeah, you want to get it out there.
Maintained, right? That's the...
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So Emmanuel stayed with us for the whole hour.
Thanks, Emmanuel.
and he thanked for both of us, and then he said we were great, so we're gonna take it as a big compliment, because I think for both of us it's awesome to have him around for such a long time. I think we're gonna be kind of closing in on today. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe if we do a V2, then we dig deeper. And I really want to see this cluster that you're working on. So the machine, the manufacturer, and a lot of stuff. Because it seems like an interesting part. And also it's awesome to see that, you know, you're building it in clusters and you're not running out of ideas after that initial spin.
No, yeah, there's so much to cover. So
I still think cities should be here, but that's just
yeah, okay.
And
all right.
But also, but yes, they, even if they're here, not as blog posts, but the cities, they're still gonna be quite unique. So in that part, I agree. I would still probably have done those cities as a, because then you have another data set to work with, which would be the, where was it? Not location. Sorry, my bad. I'm still kind of.
Yeah, my naming conventions aren't great.
Nah,
either.
it's all good. So you would still have the North Carolina, and you could just have even hyper, just a link, you know.
That's
set
exactly
for different cities, and that helps clustering by a lot.
Yeah.
And now you have like a blog post, so the only thing you can do is in theory do the same, but now you have to have some sort of radio button or something, or do a cross-reference field. So it's not that you can't do it. Still, it's more. It's something I will need to look into for sure. It's a good idea. So that's just my 2 cents. The only thing, but that's also something I noticed through the stream while chatting. Yeah. So I thought I'm gonna mention it. All right, man. So awesome. It's awesome. Follow Colin on Twitter. Follow his project on Twitter. If you like pinball, get in touch with him. For sure, you're gonna have a lot of things to talk about. If you don't, but you're interested into some sort of how to build a decent SEO build on Webflow, especially that is driven by data. Also, I think he's gonna be more than happy to chat, especially if you have other skills in return.
Yes, I will barter.
Yeah. So, and I think this is the magic of this community. You know, people are sharing and showing and kind of explaining the way they work, and this is different from not hiding that much. As in more matured maybe tools or communities can do. So that part I love. All right, guys. Thanks, Emmanuel, for being here. Thanks, Colin, for being our guest today. It was awesome, and for sure we're gonna have you on sometime in the future again. And awesome. If you have any kind of questions for Colin, get in touch. And most importantly, follow him on Twitter. And that was this week's Webflow SEO. And we'll see you next week, same spot, same time, same channel. And guys, see ya. Awesome. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.